G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. Hey, look, I've got to start off by saying a huge thank you to everyone that's been reaching out. The calls that I've been getting, the messages of people going, hey, look, I really love what the episodes, the content and the flow. So I want to start by saying a heartfelt gratitude to everyone that's taken the time out to drop us a message, reach out with their own portfolios as well and have us review them as well. It means a lot. And I think one thing that I really want to say is we don't track the downloads. We're not trying to boost engagement here. That's not the game. There's no funnel to sell you here. Home loans and being strategic mortgage brokers is the core of what we do. And today's episode, again, I like to peel back the layers on our business and talk to who's who in the zoo. And today I'm joined by Kelsey Drake, who's my client services manager here at Atelier Wealth. Welcome on, Kelsey.
Oh, thanks, Aaron.
Now, you're not shy for a word, and that's an absolute compliment, by the way. So this is going to be an absolute cracking episode. And I feel like we've talked a lot about, from a lending perspective, had buyer's agents and the strategy, but really what makes or breaks the client experience is two parts. One is how we show up.
Yes.
And how the bank shows up as well. And that's generally a lot that's out of our locus of control.
Yeah.
But for a client, and particularly if you're listening and going, hey, look, I've worked with a broker and things weren't that smooth, for example, I'm going to start by saying we're not perfect.
No.
Absolutely. We're far from it. You may see a few awards here and there for clients, customer service of the year or whatever we've been awarded and recognized. I say the awards are a lag factor. I don't get hung up on them because they reward what we've done in the past. And a client coming in doesn't really care about our previous awards because every day for me is day one. A new client comes in, they don't care about our track record. They go, how are we showing up today? How are we delivering? And if we have an off day, and we do, things can go off the rails a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, clients can easily be affected by something, and then from day one, their experience can not feel like, hey, these guys have all of these great reviews and, they seem so great, but things can go wrong. And so we obviously want to avoid that from day dot. We want everything to feel really good from the moment that they're speaking with us.
Yeah. And that's, what we mean by the sum of our parts. Like everything's got to work together. So that, me at the front end, the loan strategy, Nate particularly when we're doing the loan, the deep dive into the numbers and the options, then it gets across to yourself where you'll drive that from, the time that the loan's been submitted all the way through to settlement and beyond as well. And there's so many little parts in it, like one chink in the armor can kind of bring us down a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from the moment an app's submitted, I'm looking at that application just thinking, okay, we've got to make it through to settlement. We've got to make it through to finance dates. How are we going to make this happen? What are these lenders' turnaround times? Like, is this going to be feasible? If it's not, what are we going to put in place to make sure that no stress is happening and that clients know that they're going to get to their finance dates and settlement dates, without too many hiccups or problems.
Perfect. So I guess what I want to do is, from us, where things can go wrong, I call it death by 1,000 cuts.
Yes.
And they're really small things that can start to happen, but you compound a little error here, a delay here, for example, a request for more information here. And for a client, they're going, mate, what is going on? This is not a smooth, seamless client experience. And we can't guarantee that. I think that'd be foolish of any mortgage broker to guarantee that. But I think for us, it's going, hey, let's preempt this. Let's be open. I think that's what this episode is really going to unpack, which is what to expect when you're going through a loan application experience. What can go wrong? And I feel like this it's not a disclaimer, but it's just more to go, hey, if you're forewarned, at least you're coming in with your eyes wide open as well.
Yeah, and how to prepare yourself so that you get the smooth ride as well, because there's a lot of things that clients can do that actually will help them have a much nicer experience. And if they have that information going into a loan application and a purchase, then they're going to be way more prepared and they're going to know what they need to do to be able to prevent any issues or really any surprises. Because I think a lot of the times it's clients seem surprised by what the lenders ask of them or what's expected, how delays can occur. And the fact that, the assessors at the bank, they're humans, they're not robots. So you've got that to factor in as well. It's not or fully automated. We're coming into a day and age where a lot of things are automated. But at this stage, broking and assessment of applications is not, and there can be human error involved in a lot of different ways, which obviously our job is to try and minimize that. But it's important that people are aware that those things can happen.
Yeah. So for those that haven't come into contact with you, you've been with us for coming on 6 months.
Yeah.
And what surprised you when because you haven't been working a mortgage broking background? Your background's been family law, for example.
Yes.
And so coming into mortgage broking, what surprised you, do you think?
I think I've come in at a really interesting time where with the business, Atelier Wealth in general, people are so eager. So I think what surprised me is we rarely see cold feet. That's not something that we experience. People want to get pre-approved. People want to buy. People want to buy before they're pre-approved, like everyone just wants to purchase right now, which is great. I mean, it's a buyer's market, right? But, all of that eagerness and that high volume, there can sometimes be issues that come along with that as well. But I actually really enjoy it. Obviously, a fast pace and high volume work environment. That's what I was setting myself up for. That's what I knew I was getting myself into, and I love it. So it works for me. But
I think we said that in the interview. I was like, you want growth? Just be careful what you wish for, because that growth happens when I think anything. Like they talk about diamonds, how they're made under pressure. Growth to me happens when you put through your paces and you come out the other side. And I think you've certainly stepped up, especially not having that that deep industry experience. I think has actually worked in your favour.
Yeah, I think so too. I think when you come in with a fresh mind and then you started a business like Atelier Wealth and we don't do things always standard. I think we stand out in a lot of ways from what I've seen and heard from my 6 months of experience. I feel like coming in with a fresh plate and fresh eyes, I can just start from how we work, no biases. And so we can run things and do things the Atelier Wealth way, which is just really good.
Thanks, I appreciate it. So let's start at the beginning. So I think for the conversation to really flow so people understand, let's start at the beginning. When someone initially makes contact, for example, you're really eager, I want to get in, for the first time in a long time, it's like there's a bit of wait actually to try and get that initial booking as well, which people just want to, a chat tomorrow and we have no tickets on ourselves. For the first time in a long time, it's like we can't show up for an initial call that quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we get eager client calls, all I want to do is get them in straight away. Right now, it's more like 2 weeks is the earliest we can fit in. If people are able to wait a little bit longer, that's great. But initial calls, as much as I'd love for you to be available just like that, people are calling and they want to speak with the brokers and their books, they just fill up. We know that your calls are throughout the whole day. I'm telling people, let's get you in at this slot and it's to the minute 35 to, and I'm like, I know it's a random time, but this is when he's available. So if you can make it work, and they make it work. But
yeah. And that's, again, I'd love to be chatting to people all day, every day. It gets me going. But again, there's only so many hours in the day. Yeah. Where the energy goes as well. And I think we've also been very conscious to not take on more than we can. And I think that's what we probably did in the past is bite off more than you can chew and chew like crazy. That doesn't work. That formula doesn't work. And look, again, it's not to defend myself, but I feel like you want a job done, you give it to a busy person. And everyone on the team is well at capacity, but it just means that we've got to be on our game. 10 o'clock every day, team whip call. So when we're managing our entire workflow and our pipeline, it's going, hey, every day at 10 o'clock, check in every single deal we go through, for example. So again, that's that reassurance that if you're listening going, hey mate, did things slip through the cracks? It really shouldn't.
It's hard for things to slip through the cracks because like you said, every single day we go through every single deal. So as a team, we're running through that. We are checking in and everyone in the team knows where that deal is at on that day. there's no not knowing with the deal. We're very well aware of where each deal is at.
Yeah. So we start with initial calls, and then the next part is, clients will then get what they call a fact find. We call it our client center.
Yes.
And that's where they, upload all their documents. That comes through to us. Again, we're probably on a 5 to 6 day turnaround time to get a loan strategy out, which, typically used to take us 2 or 3 days. Now it's 5 or 6. Again, there's just the depth of work there at the moment. And again, we're seeing clients that have decent portfolios, for example. So it doesn't matter if you've got 1 or 2, but you're trying to scale to 6. It doesn't matter if you've got 4 or 5 existing, you're trying to get to a couple more, for example. It takes time. And I feel for us, we measure twice, we cut once. And I say, I don't want to rush it and get it wrong. I'd rather take our time. If an extra couple of days, really, what's an extra couple of days in the grand scheme of things if you're organized and prepared? I think that's the message I'm going to keep coming back to that, which is if you're organized and prepared, rather than finding a property and putting the horse before the cart. That upsets the entire flow for us, which is we can't do our best work when we've got a gun to our head and someone's got a property that they've not even got pre-approval for.
Exactly. And you want to prioritize the clients that have been organized. At the same time, you feel bad almost going, okay, this person's just purchased and they've got a 5-day cooling off and we need to get them financed now and we don't have a pre-approval. All of our clients that are pre-approved and really organized, you're almost like, I want to prioritize the people that listen to me. But sometimes people do things and they don't realize the impact that can have on the whole flow on. Just okay, they learn, and then next time they make a purchase, they won't do that again, because it's not a fun experience for the client either. There's a lot of stress that comes in when we are putting the cart before the horse.
Yes. Yeah. Spot on. So if we then look at it, so at buy stage, we'll loan strategy out to a client, for example, and then we pick a particular lender. Then we've got to actually and it's like, that's not instant. We've got to then actually punch in, do the data entry with that particular bank. I want to pick whoever at the moment, Westpac. It's like, we've got to go in to a lodgement system, key in all the data, send out application forms, get a client to digitally sign, get that back through to us. At that stage, hey, there might be, depending on the bank that we've gone to, we need a few bits of extra information.
Yes.
And that's where the initial friction starts going. But I provided all this information, like, yeah, but that was 2 weeks ago. Your payslip's now out of date. 2 weeks later, we need updated payslips. And that's probably where we start to see that initial pushback going, but I've already provided this. Why are you asking for it again?
Yeah.
And that's before it's even gone to a bank.
Yeah, it is. And no one enjoys the back and forth, because it is a pain point, especially when you feel like I've provided this. But it's important to remember that in a process, banks need their most current information, and we will push back on things that we don't necessarily agree with if we do believe it's already been provided. So if we're normally asking a client for it, it's because we've looked at what we have and we've spoken with the bank, and yes, we do need that updated document.
Yeah, well said. And I feel like this is a healthy way to have a chat about expectations and delivery, because I look at it, and my view of the world is very biased because I'm a broker. But if I'm going to a broker, for example, the modus operandi isn't make this as seamless as possible. To me, it might get me the outcome that I want.
Yeah.
There may be a few hurdles and a few bumps on the way through. I think strap yourself in for that. I'm telling you right now, I've got a lot of broker mates. No one can guarantee a smooth client experience. And anyone that does, I don't know, I'd be questioning that as well. And that's not a pot shot at anyone. It's just more to say, hey, look, the entire thing's out of our control. I can get it to a point that it goes to a bank. The next part that we talk about is when it goes to a bank, what happens, and you just alluded to that before as well. So that's just kind of like me just saying, reframing this whole thing, going, if you're going to a mortgage broker, you're going for an outcome, which is the lending or the portfolio or growing and scaling, or a lower rate. That's the outcome you're looking for. You're not looking for a seamless, smooth, slick client experience. Let's just be very open here.
Yeah, we're looking to get you to settlement. We're looking to get you that property, and then we're looking to move on to the next one.
Yeah, spot on. So the application's gone to a bank, and then up front we might have said, hey, this particular bank's at 3 business days, and then when we go to submit it, now it's at 5 or 6 business days. So if you're hearing if you're picking up what I'm putting down, we've had a few business days, 2 weeks at the start. We've had a week here, for example. We've had another couple of days to do the data entry, then another day or two to get application forms. And then it's gone to the bank and it's another 4 or 5 days before they pick it up. And we're talking like a bloody month here.
Yeah. And clients are sitting there going, this feels like it's taking a long time, because they don't realize in the background there's quite a few steps that have actually passed that they're not aware of. Of course, we are letting them know when applications are being submitted and letting them know about turnaround times. But I will say, when a lender drops their rate and then we present it to clients and then they're like, yeah, let's go with that. Then when it comes time to purchase, of course, that lender's turnaround time has now blown out.
Because every other broker's jumped on that rate bandwagon.
Put applications in with that lender. Exactly.
Yeah. So again, sometimes we're telling lenders, hey, clients, it might be a slightly higher rate, but we know when you drop that sexy low rate, as a couple lenders have, they're really skimming for business. Their back end can't handle that. And then we see a inflow, like massive flow of applications to a particular bank. They can't handle it. And then they're just starting to drop the ball all the way through because their systems just can't cope with it. And they should just really shut up shop. And if I think back, this is before your time, buddy, but I think back to COVID, there was one bank that was like 25 business days to pick up an application. That was a major bank. I'm like, geez, that was nuts at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad those kind of days. And I think it throws a lot of people in, especially in a day and age where digital is king, and they're going, I don't believe this loan process is so archaic. Like, what are you guys doing there? And, with all the tech that we've got, I got to tell you, from when I started broking to where I am now, with all the technology that we've got, it actually takes longer to do a loan application than what I did years ago. Believe it or not, I still can't get my head around it. Every time I sit at industry roundtables talking from a broker's perspective, I'm like, tech is not enabling our business. Tech is actually setting our business so far backwards sometimes. ID, bank statements, there's so many good tech tools around that. But the actual mortgage process to get in, now it's digital docs. That took a long time and that's still not perfect, for example. But for a digital day and age, the home loan experience is still archaic.
Yeah, I mean, some lenders are still working with print paper documents. So that's just a classic example. And there are some states that just require some documents to be printed and posted. So it's something to be aware of. It's not ideal, and you would expect everything to be e-doc and e-sign, but that is not always the way.
Yeah, spot on. So I guess one of the big messages that we've got today is, as you're listening, it's one, be as organised and prepared. So if you think it's 2 weeks for us, when you speak to a buyer's agent, they're probably at least 3 or 4 weeks to get in, with any good buyer's agent. A good accountant, same thing, where they're taking time to get initial bookings. So you can start to see, if you're building that team around you, you want to allow yourself time. And I think back, think to a time when it was closing at the end of the calendar year. So you get to November, December. It's like, I want to get this done this year. I'm like, I think that ship might be sailing. And you're telling people in August, if you want to buy this year, you've got to get organized now. So if you've got aspirations to buy in 2025, my advice is, what are you waiting for? What are you genuinely waiting for? That's not me angling for any business. If you've got great brokers, and I know people reach out to us and they tell me who their broker is, and I say, work with your broker, because they're an absolute weapon. They're an industry colleague. We generally know who's who at the top of our game. And if I say you got a great broker, stay there. I'm happy for you to work with your broker. Thanks for giving us an opportunity to look at your portfolio. You've got a great relationship, stay with it. If you're not getting the strategic support, that's possibly where we can have a chat. So be as organized as possible. Give yourself more time than you planned for. Manage your own expectations around what this journey is going to look like and how long things will take, and the ping pong emails, calls back and forth about the information that we need. That's before we've been submitted to a bank. Yes. Yeah. Then we get to the bank, what we call lodgement and then submission. And it's it goes, like you said, there's a human that picks this up, what they call a credit assessor, a credit manager inside a bank. Now, I can put the exact same loan, same documents, to the same lender, put it in front of two different assessors and get a wildly different outcome?
Yes. In fact, I actually have had 2 pre-approval extensions for the exact same person go to a lender before. For some reason, they weren't linked, so they went to 2 different assessors, and I had 1 extension granted and I had 1 come back with outstandings. Same lender, same timing, same everything. And I had to call them and go, this doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So I was like, either give me 2 lots of outstandings or give me the other extension letter, because I can't present this to a client when they're identical.
Correct, mate. Spot on. So what again, we try to break down the bank language as well. So what outstandings, what you're referring to there, Kelsey, is when a bank asks for more information, that's what they call industry-wide MIR, so more information required, or outstanding conditions, and that's generally where it becomes either a showstopper. And so as a client, you're thinking the bank's asking for more information, your monkey brain is defaulting to, they're going to say no. And it's up to us to then decipher that to go, it's what I call, is it credit critical? Is it loan critical? Or is it a matter of, hey, they just need more information, the stuff's gone out of date and it's a ticking box exercise? I'll give you some examples. Ticking boxes stuff is, hey, the pay slip's fallen out of date.
Yeah.
Yep. Credit critical is, we need to see the existing loan that they've got that we're not refinancing. We need to see the interest rate, the balance, for example, and the loan term left on that as well. Yeah. And based on that information, that could definitely, change the entire way the application kind of moves forward. Yep. So there's some things where it's like the employment's changed there. They said they were PAYG. We've been led to believe it. The bank's going, actually, we think this is a contract because there's no super on here or annual leave. Yeah.
Exactly.
So there's small things that, again, might even slip under our radar. It goes to a bank, or the bank's asking questions. We've got one client that works for a multinational, happens to be working overseas, but they're like, is this truly an Australian business, or they paid in overseas dollars? And that changes the entire way that the bank looks at their income. Yeah. And then we're like, hey, mate, can we get a letter to confirm that you work for an Australian company? And they're like, the first thing is like, how am I going to get this letter from this behemoth multinational organization?
Exactly.
Like, yeah, correct. And it's like, then the assessor's only working off this very limited information. Some banks put time limits on their assessors on how long they actually get to look at a deal.
Yes, that is so true. Some lenders only have a couple hours before they have to send it back, and then it goes to the back of the queue again. Some are able to hold it for a day, which is better. So if we do come back during the assessment period and say, hey, we need this document, if you are able to provide it as soon as possible, that is the most ideal outcome, because otherwise it's going to the back of that assessment queue again, which can delay
restarts the next few business days again before it goes back into their queue. And then overnight, if they've got more purchases coming through, and I've asked this question multiple times at banks going, why is it during in-flight when we're going through a loan application, why do the days, kind of the goalposts, keep moving for an assessment time frame? And what they say is, look, overnight there's purchases that have come in. As a bank, we can only handle 500 applications in a day, so we've got to triage the urgent ones, purchases, and everything else gets pushed to the bottom, and therefore that kind of builds up the workload for the next day. So if you can understand a bank, they're a business. I say, don't make your problem their problem. They've got finite resources. They know their margins. They know their workflow as well. Mm-hmm. Just because you've bought and you're on a time frame for a cooling off period, they're going, hey mate, they're going to dig their heels in. They're going to do, obviously we're going to do, and they're going to do everything we can based on relationships. But don't expect yours just to get special treatment, because and it's hard for me to say that because I want every client to feel special.
Yeah, and
but don't expect. Yeah, correct, right? But it's like the bank's not going to bend over for you because you've bought and now you're in this cooling off period. They're going through their normal checks and process, and look, they'll always what we call escalate based on urgency.
Yeah.
But if you've been disorganized and you've given 3 days for a cooling off period, you got to understand that's probably also not fair to a lender either.
Yeah, it's not fair to a lender at all. And even escalation time periods, a lot of lenders' escalation is 48 hours. So even when we do escalate, deals, it's not always enough time. But that's sort of when it comes into, if we're getting close to time periods, we're having those conversations with clients, with conveyancers, with buyer's agents. As long as everyone's up to date and aware of that, you can really just avoid a lot of issues, because being open and honest about that and saying, hey, sometimes we need an extension on finance.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's just a part of the parcel, especially when you're working with tight finance dates like 5 business days in New South Wales is very common for a purchase. So that's like a classic example where if things aren't quite organised, or if the lenders' turnaround times have blown out, if escalations aren't an option. We have a lender at the moment who's stopped all escalations at the moment because they're too busy.
We think or a valuation might take 2 or 3 days to book in.
Valuations, absolutely.
Yeah. So you 2 out of 3 days, and the valuation report. So it might take 3 days for the valuer, if there's a tenant in there, and then the real estate for the stars to align to someone to get back. We've had this where the tenant was traveling, they couldn't get access. 3 days out of 5 days of sitting there waiting for this valuation report, and another day to get this valuation report completed and back in. That's 4 days, and we're just sweating on this valuation report to come in. And it's like, that should be easy. It should be slam dunk stuff. But now that's the thing that's kind of derailing the entire approval process.
Absolutely. The great thing is that it's very rare that people decline a finance extension.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you. What's up? How many declines? So you've been with us 6 months. I've been doing this for 10 years. I can literally count on one hand, and I'm like, one hand, less than 5. And we do hundreds of loan applications a year, right? So the decline rate for us is 0.0. I think they've worked out like 0.01% or something silly like that as a statistic.
It just doesn't happen. Vendors are actually very understanding of it, because you have to think about the process a vendor has to go through to find a buyer as well. Even when it's a buyer's market, when a vendor has someone lined up they've signed the contract of sale, they've got some of the, holding deposit, everything's going to plan, settlement dates there. We're saying, hey, can we have 3 more days for finance? It's not a big deal. We're just ticking boxes and waiting on a bank. They will 100% receive finance. A lender's not going to turn around and go, no, let's do another open home. Let's can this contract of sale. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And you have to remember as well, every single professional has skin in the game on that deal as well. So conveyancers are going to be saying, hey, just extend it a couple days. The settlement's still going to go ahead. The date is still locked in. The purchase is still happening.
Yeah.
We just need to give them a couple extra days for their own peace of mind, because that's what that finance date is there for. Peace of mind for the client that they can pay for the property, right?
Spot on. And again, this is not us beating our chest. None of this is. But when I tell a client, hey, look, trust our track record here. We've never lost a deposit.
No.
And we've never missed a settlement that we can't complete on. We might have been late for a settlement here or there, which is maybe the other side hasn't been ready, or there's been a slight delay because it's linked to another settlement. But we've never not been able to complete a settlement. And to me, I'm like, when I say that to people, I maybe should say it up front a bit more, but it's usually comes out at like the 11th hour when they're starting to get a bit worried. I'm like, look, trust the track record. This will not happen on our watch. And what you've also got to realize is when we have really strong relationships with banks, that has taken years to nurture and develop. So inside a bank, for example, we've got a relationship manager, then we've got a state manager, then we've got a national manager. And for us, given the, given the presence that we have in the industry, that's taken years to develop, where we've got on their radars. They tend to know us, we know them. And if we need to call in a favor to say, hey, look, can this go to the top of the queue? Hey, look, can we settle on scanned documents? And that's probably a big X factor that we've got when documents are coming in from overseas and they're scanned through to us, and we've got an express post tracking ID. And we're like, hey, look, documents in the mail, take my word for it. And they will do that.
Yeah.
That's not something that's available to every mortgage broker.
No. Yeah, they do have to trust us. And I will say it's very rare that settlement dates require extensions. I don't think that that's happened very much at all.
It won't happen on our watch.
No.
It just won't happen. I mean, we're trying to be ready to settle in advance.
In advance.
Yeah.
Settlements are typically booked in a week beforehand. Sometimes they get booked in a little bit later, but generally that actually comes down to when the client signed their loan documents. Because as soon as they're formally approved and those loan documents are issued out, as long as they're returned straight away, that's the main thing that, causes a hold up on settlement being booked.
Yeah. So if I kind of loop back to where we were in the process, so the loan's been submitted to a bank, there's outstanding conditions that have been back and forth.
Yeah.
We're vetting that before it goes back to a bank. Now, I'm going to say that's probably one part for us. Naturally, we're trying to be as good as we can. Stuff may be sitting buried in like an email chain of like 50 or 60 where a client goes, hey, man, I've emailed that to you. I'm like, yep, sorry, you have on the odd occasion, but it's like buried waist deep in like email comms. So for us, we'll own at that point. But we're checking everything that goes when we're asking a client like yourself to send in more information, whether that's an updated pay slip, updated bank statement, updated car lease, whatever it is that we're asking for. We're not just like tick and flick from a bank. We just copy and paste and go, we need this. We're actually vetting it in our team before we're asking someone for that information. If we've asked for it and you've provided it, I'll put our hand up and say, we're sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're moving at pace. It's cool. Because I think in the back of, so if you're listening, in the back of your mind going, are these people incompetent at this point?
Yeah.
and look, it could be because, Kelsey's on a day off, or, someone else is busy and someone else has picked it up in the team. So there's no excuses, but it's like, hey, look, we always want to be better, but it's one of many things that we're looking at. And that's where we're trying to keep the wheels turning and smooth out a client experience. So we're always checking things from a bank when they ask us before we go back and forth. And then the next part is you get to, that beautiful stage of, the loan approved. And I feel like that's when everyone just breathes this sigh of relief. And I often say to the team, I'm like, when a client says to us, oh, thank God that's over, I'm like, come on, like we should be there should be more than that. It should be an awesome experience. It should be celebrated.
Yeah.
I get some banks, sometimes it can be a little bit arduous, but understand that you're not doing this too many times in your life. And this is where people talk about applying for a loan becoming a very stressful experience. If you can come into it preempting some level of stress, mate, that's half the battle won. Like the expectation that, hey, look, this is not going to be a smooth, clean, seamless process. And you go, hey, look, there's going to be some back and forth. If you have that, if you just come into it with that attitude, I feel like you're going to show up a lot better and not fight it. You're not going to go against the tide. You're going to go with the tide.
Yeah.
That's really important for us to have clients that come on that journey with us to go, mate, trust us. We've done this before. You've either, as a return client, you've done this before as well with us.
Mm-hmm.
But getting to formal approval is like, that's just part of, that's what we do. That's the expectation. That's nothing special. Yeah. That's what we should be doing.
That's what we do every day. And I will say, if you want to get to formal approval as easily and smoothly as possible, one, you want to be pre-approved before you purchase.
Oh, can we just stop there? Let's double down on this, because that's probably something, again, I think sometimes we're guilty of just giving clients this like overinflated confidence and go, mate, you're good for it, go. And we don't follow up at that point with loan strategies and go, hey, look, we should really be, I mean, that's obviously our shortcoming, which we really should be pushing people to get pre-approved.
Pre-approved, yeah.
But we don't follow up. Like, we give you a loan strategy. You're an adult. If you want this to move forward, you've got to get back in touch and keep the wheels turning. That's the onus I put on a client.
Yeah.
If you want to own this, you've got to pick it up, say, yeah, I want to move forward. And then at that point, because we're not here to sell a loan.
No.
We're not selling loans. We're not flogging product. We're working with people that actually want to move forward, and we need your skin in the game, our skin in the game, to kind of meet each other halfway.
Absolutely. Like I said, we're dealing with a lot of clients who are extremely eager. So when we're sending out loan options, we expect to have a response on, I want to go through with this.
Yeah.
This is the option.
Because then they'll meet with the buyer's agent. The buyer's agent's like, yeah, let's move forward. And I've got to put this out there. The amount of buyer's agents that take on briefs and clients that are not pre-approved. I talk about mortgage brokers sometimes needing an uppercut. That buyer's agent, if you're working with a buyer's agent and they do not get you to be pre-approved before they start scouting for looking for a property, I got to tell you, like, Australian Property Scout probably set the standard in this space.
They're fantastic.
They set the standard in space. There are so many buyer's agents that I work with that do not expect clients to be pre-approved, and I've got to kind of pull the handbrake and go, what are we doing here? Like, this is not professional.
No,
at all.
It's not. You don't know what the client can purchase for.
Totally. Yeah. So that's kind of my, my little bit of chili powder in this podcast today, which is, if you're working with a buyer's agent and they're not asking to be pre-approved beforehand, major red flag.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're not having that conversation with a buyer's agent, if they're not asking that question, huge concern.
Yeah. Which is why we work, again, no favorites here, but Sam Gordon and the team at Australian Property Scout, you cannot get into their queue without being pre-approved. I feel like that is, it's a point of difference, but that should be industry standard 100%. From our perspective. Yeah. Anyway, I won't labor the point. You've heard me talk about it. So then this is where we're going to formal approval. And then what happens here is, and this is, pops up consistently, which is loan documents get issued and they're bloody wrong.
Yeah, I don't know what's in the water at the moment, but not just loan documents, formal approval letters.
Yes.
I'm seeing areas and in the time I've been here, never really had a lot of issues with formal approval letters. In the last month, I think I've had to push back to 4 or 5 different lenders on different, and the formal approval letter, there's just an error. They've got something slightly wrong.
Yeah, we're talking a loan amount wrong, the interest rate's wrong, for example.
Exactly.
And again, we're trying to be eagle-eyed and pick up on this before it goes out to a client going, hey, mate, you got formal approval. Where's the letter? It's got an error in it. And they're like, bloody hell, mate, what's going on here? It's like, the next, what's this vein that's popping out on the side of their head? That's coming out. And we're like, yeah, mate, we're in the trenches with you. We want this done.
That vein popping out for me.
we've got no vested interest in making this thing draw out. We want it done as quickly, efficiently as possible without any more hours going into it.
Yeah.
But we're not going to send out a letter that's incorrect. So that's got to go back to the bank.
Yeah.
Then we're back in front of assessor, back into their work queue. They've got their days planned out as well. So again, it might be another 24, 48 hours before that letter gets reissued. And in the meantime, you've got like the conveyancer, the vendor chasing us up for this formal approval letter so we can exchange. And again, I'm just saying, if you think you need more time, add more time to it because of this stuff. And we'd love, the exception to the rule is where this stuff happens. 4 or 5 out of how many need rework. It's the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
But you just might be unlucky at that point and caught in the crossfire.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then loan documents, obviously, they get issued to us and the client simultaneously.
Yep. So we don't get a chance to actually see what's gone out.
We don't get to vet those.
Yeah.
And some lenders don't even send us a copy of the loan documents, particularly if you're purchasing in a trust. There's actually loan documents that we don't receive access to because it's technically a conflict because of the guarantor loan documents. You can provide us with a copy if you want us to check something, but we do not receive a copy of those from the bank.
Yeah. So if clients are like needing that bit of hand holding around, what am I signing, for example, I don't never use the word hard, but we can't actually see what you're seeing because we don't get a copy of those documents. Again, they're going directly out to a client, for example, or it's digital, or that's paper-based. And so then we're relying on someone walking us through what they're seeing and what they need to do. And then you got to think, then there's some loan document packs which need independent legal advice.
Yes. And that's a big one. That's a big thing that can actually slow down a process from formal approval to settlement book is clients not realizing they need to get independent legal advice. I will say if you're purchasing in a trust or SMSF and you're a guarantor for that,
you do a guarantor loan with parents.
Guarantor loan with parents. Yeah. Anywhere there's a guarantor involved at all, you hear the word guarantor, independent legal advice will be required.
Yeah.
It's on all loan documents, but some lenders require you to complete a statutory declaration that states that you've received it, and some of those lenders expect that statutory declaration to be signed by a solicitor.
Yeah.
So
again, we're adding the solicitor into the mix here as well prior to settlement. They're busy people. So if obviously we can't guarantee the time date when loan documents will be issued, but it's being in contact with your solicitor going, I'm going to expect these documents to come in. I just need to know that we can get in once these documents have been received. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, the moment we're getting formal approval on those deals, I already am having that conversation about independent legal advice before it's formally approved. But the moment that comes through, I'm saying call a solicitor, book in for independent legal advice. And it's independent legal advice, so it's not meant to be the conveyancer that you're working with. It has to be a different solicitor.
Well said. So we get to the point that you've got loan documents signed. Now, the other part is when we get signed documents, we again set a standard here. We always will scan documents back in because documents have gone missing in the post, believe it or not. We always say, hey, use Express Post because then we can send a tracking ID to a bank and we can see where it's at. The bank can see where it's at as well. So again, if we're on a tight settlement time frame, we can go, hey, work on certifying the scanned documents pending the originals getting to head office or to one of the centres that they've got to be processed at as well.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to printing and signing loan documents, we always love to receive a scanned copy before you pop it in that Express Post bag.
Just so we can check it.
But the great thing is when we send out our formal approval emails, particularly for those ones that are paper signed, we have a link to a video that tells you exactly where to fill it out and how to sign it. So watch it. it's actually extremely informative. And we also have a link to my calendar where you can book in and just sign your loan documents with my assistants. And any client that's done that can attest, like, it makes things a lot easier because they know it's right and I know it's right, and then it's a done deal. And even a phone call sometimes is just that reassurance you need to know that you've signed them all correctly and everything's done. And being aware that some lenders don't do certain things automatically, that you need to do it manually. For example, some lenders are not going to automatically open an offset account or transaction account for you when you do a loan application with them. You have to call and open that account yourself.
Or worst case, you have to go into a branch.
Or yes, actually, some lenders you have to go into a branch.
Believe it, we're 2024 and we've got people going into a branch to set up. Like, guys, if you're listening, I'm telling you, this is how anti-digital the entire process is. It's a major bank that's getting people to go into a branch to set up accounts. I know that because I got one of my loans through one of these lenders, and I had to go in at 10:30 on a Wednesday morning, whatever day it was, to get ID'd and set up. And it took me probably about 30, 40 minutes for a simple account set up. Yeah. So again, you can resist it. You can push back all you want. Mate, if we're going to this particular bank, there's nothing you can do that's going to change that. You can't fight it.
Exactly. The best thing to do is not to fight it and to just do it.
And just be prepared. The branch is going to bloody sell you credit cards and loan insurance and all the bloody palaver that comes with it. Yeah. You just say, no, I'm here to set up an account. I want to work out as soon as possible without sounding and being rude as well. So yes. Cross-sell is the name of that game, by the way. And we don't buy into that crap at all, buy credit cards and other insurance products as well. But anyway, so you can start to see again, and we're talking about days, delays, for example. How do we keep the wheels turning, moving? Again, we've got no vested interest in making this drag out. In fact, the exact opposite is ours, as smooth and efficiently as possible. But we work on what's in the locus of our control. And as a client, as a listener, you've got to think the same thing. What is in your locus of control and what can you get frustrated about? Because trying to get mad about it isn't going to change the outcome. You got to do what the bank says. They're lending their money to you. Unfortunately, you've got to dance to their tune. I'm just going to leave it there.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And then we get to settlement. And this should, again, awesome achievement. We get a kick out of this. The amount of times when I call someone on a settlement day, like, mate, couldn't have done it without you. I'm like, no, we couldn't have done it without you either. So it's a great partnership at that point. Sometimes you'll hear from your solicitor before you hear from us because they're the ones that are closest to it on settlement day.
Yes.
So we're not the first to make that call. And then what happens 24 to 48 hours afterwards is what we call a loan repayment summary, where we're giving you, the first date of that repayment, which account it's coming from. Big one here is offset accounts that get set up. Mm-hmm. It will surprise you that they're not linked.
Yeah. Sometimes they're not linked. Some lenders are very good at taking the nominated accounts that you note down in your loan documents. Like, yes, you have written this account down. This is for your offset account. It's all there. You've provided all the information they need, and the dots just don't line up. I don't know what happens.
And again,
I don't know why they don't do it. Yeah. But you have to sometimes make that phone call.
And that's what we're saying. We're not passing the buck here, but there's got to be some responsibility that when you get that loan, we don't get to see at that point anything afterwards due to privacy. So we don't get to see what's in your internet banking. You've got to go in there. You've got to click into the accounts and make sure that the offset accounts are linked and what the repayments. So we'll give you a loan repayment summary. You've got to take that information. You have to go off and check that. The amount of times that afterwards, like when we do an equity release, there's funds that have been paid out for a loan or redraw, whatever it is, and it's like it actually hasn't come out clean in the wash. At that point, you got to tell us, and that's cool. Like, we're here to help. Post settlement wise, that's actually where we earn our stripes, which is, hey, we'll come in to help. The bank sometimes won't talk to us due to privacy. You can imagine giving brokers access to people's loans after a loan is settled. A few bad apples spoil it for the rest of us. But due to privacy, the banks just won't give us information. There's some banks that won't even tell us loan balances after the loan is settled.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how much the walls go up. As much as we're trying to be efficient after settlement, you got to understand, sometimes we're actually just constrained by privacy. So own it, double check it. I think there was some wild industry stat I heard ago, like 50% of people miss their first repayment. With us, that number is very, very low. I'd say that number is less than 10% because we're telling people when to expect that first repayment, the date. There's an SMS that goes out letting you know about that first repayment. We've told you which account it's coming out from, so you've got to make sure there's money in there. This is part of adulting. This is part of getting a loan. And if you want to grow and build a portfolio, this entire episode is getting you in the right space to become elite. Yeah. So let's break this down by what I mean by elite. If you're training for an elite sport, if you're becoming an elite professional, if you're doing anything that's elite level, you've got to be prepared to have some hardship. You've got to be prepared to have some skin in the game as well. And you can't just kind of like point fingers at everyone going, that's your job. You've got to have some real ownership in this as well. And it might sound, I don't know what the word is. It might not sound super, super client friendly, but that's the whole point of that. If I can tell people what to expect coming into this, that is actually the definition of being truly client friendly, going, hey mate, this is your responsibility. This is ours. This is the banks, this is solicitors, this is the planners, this is the buyer's agents. Everyone's got their part to play. We can't do it all, but we are the sum of our parts as well.
Absolutely. So just be prepared. Read the letters that you receive from the lenders, because they've actually got lots of useful information in them. Pre-approval letters in particular, they actually will tell you what is required for formal approval in that letter. We'll line it out in the email as well, but I always recommend having a good read of that letter. And when I call clients and say congratulations, I also say, make sure you read this letter, because then you're fully aware and you can kind of prepare in advance for when you purchase, because some things take a while. Like a credit card closure letter can take 5 business days. Accountant letters can take some time. Valuations, we book those in, but they can take some time. So just being aware of that. It's all outlined for you. So you can, take some ownership on yourself when you are in these positions and when you're going through each step of the process, to just be prepared. And the more organized and prepared you are, the less stress you're going to have, the easier the whole process is going to be. And honestly, the more fun it'll be, because we love it. You're going to enjoy our phone conversations and it's all just going to go well, and you're buying 10 properties.
Mate, that's exactly it. When you do something that 1%, less than 1% of Australians can achieve, you're moving into uncharted territory. And that's why I say you're buying 4, 5, 6 investment properties. There's a reason why so few investors get to that chosen space. It's because you'll be willing to persevere and push through as well. So we can have all the beautiful loan strategies. We can have all the beautiful, buyer's agent property strategies set up as well. There's also a certain tenacity and resilience that comes with being a property investor, that you got to strap yourself in and go, hey mate, the bank might be difficult to deal with. By you cutting your nose to spite your face, going, that's it, I'm not going to go to that bank anymore, you're not the beneficiary of that type of decision making. And I've seen that with people where they just try to spite the bank by going, they don't want my business. I don't know, it sounds a bit harsh. They don't really care. Like they're making so much. No. We have some of the most profitable banks in the world on a population of 25 million. Just let that sink in. The banks are an absolute profit machine. They can have all the fancy ads that talk about how great they are from a customer perspective and how they enable that. I've got to tell you, there's a reason why brokers exist. It's because banks are so imperfect at delivering a loan experience. The entire broking channel, which writes over 75% of all home loans across Australia, exists because that gap that banks are disorganized. It tells us to brokers and tells us to clients, we actually want them to be disorganized because that's the gap that we play in, and that's the space that we operate in as well. So the second that the banks get there together, it means that there's a percentage of brokers that will actually perish because they don't offer the strategy, whereas the cream will lift to the top as well. And we have this goal here at Atelier Wealth, which is we want everyone to come on this journey with us. And I keep saying this, in 10 years' time, people will be asking us, how did we do it? And I'm telling you now, you got to come on the journey with us. If you're listening and you've been sitting on the sidelines, there's so many people been reaching out to me going, I've been listening, I feel inspired, I feel motivated. Awesome. Reach out to us. If you've got properties and you want to do a portfolio review, just drop us a DM saying portfolio review. If you're starting out in your journey and want that roadmap session done, hit us up with roadmap. We'll book you in for a call. And like I said, just don't be prepared for things to turn around super quick, but get yourself organized and get yourself in the right headspace that we can start to get the wheels turning for you as well. I really hope that has been helpful. Kelsey, thank you very much. Anyone that's coming through the client journey will definitely hear from you. And Kelsey's an absolute ball of energy. And that's probably one thing that we loved about having Kelsey as part of the team, going, it can be a little bit stiff and stale when we're dealing like loans and numbers all day, but we're trying to have some fun in the office too. And we're trying to make it fun for you coming on the journey with us. So it's not all like numbers and I don't know, but boring. It's going, hey mate, let's have a bit of fun with this as well and keep our eyes on the prize. So I hope that's been helpful. Hey, drop us a message if you loved it as well. Share this with a friend. If you've heard a friend that had a really bad loan experience, share this with them and go, hey mate, I don't think you're alone. This is actually quite common that people have pretty terrible loan experiences as well, but we're trying to turn that around and flip that on its head. So again, let's say thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.